This podcast has been brought to you by a tear in the space-time continuum. You might want to get that fixed. Hello and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven the Crusader. Happy New Year! Let's just hope this one's better than the last one, and also less insane.
Well, last year I would think is more on the insane than just bad, because there was a lot of good stuff that happened, but there was also a lot of bad stuff that happened. It was basically a massive yo-yo is what I'm saying.
True enough. I mean, my year sucked, but, you know, overall, just in the grand scheme of things, 2018 I think did skew more toward weird.
I mean, even just personally, never mind the big world out there, there's this constant weirdness of, in some ways it's been creatively liberating, but also creatively stagnant. I have also had some good times at my job, and have progressed in my career, and have also been unbelievably stressed at my job, and wishing I could go anywhere else. But anyway...
And meanwhile, I'm just over here wishing that I had a job that's more than 2 days a week. I mean, I love the one I have, but... I need something more than sitting on my butt all week. Please.
You'll get there, dude. You get there. You just have to keep plugging away. It's just very weird. But anyway. Point is, we are back from our month-long break and willing to start this new year. And we're going to shake things up and break new ground by doing the exact same round we always start with, which is...
Q&A! Yeah, we're like the McMahons up in here.
Oh dear.
More on that later.
This is the section where we answer questions from the audience. If you'd like us to answer your questions, either leave them in the comments or send them to me via Twitter with the hashtag MBQuestion.
Our first question comes from Infernity Zero.
What is the best cosplay you've ever seen?
Uh-oh. I don't look at cosplay much.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I occasionally do, but not as much, although I have found some good ones there. There are only two that can spring to mind on the top of my head. I mean, in terms of, like, alternate reality cosplays, Danielle Baloo, I believe her name is, or is it Baloo? Baloo? I don't know how to pronounce her last name. Basically, a woman named Danielle made a pretty awesome gender swap Squall. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Squall myself, but that was a really good costume, and... Actually, now that I think about it, there is one I would very definitely put as top cosplay, because you can get different varieties of cosplay, but just for, like, sheer, oh my god, how much hours did you spend into this? Because, like, there's different types of cosplay. You can get the Ludi fanservice stuff, you can get the straight cosplayers, you can get the ones that try to do, like I said, alternate reality takes, like Samurai Link, and that kind of thing. But there was one by... Enaste's Tears, I believe, is how you pronounce her name. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah. Enaste's Tears, who decided to do the Demon Hunter from World of Warcraft. Which may not sound that unique or interesting, but keep in mind, when I say Demon Hunter, I don't mean someone who hunts demons, I mean a demonic hunter. As in a monster that was designed by Blizzards and is incredibly overly designed for what it is.
Okay, I already admire the dedication.
Yeah, like, this is... So, the best way I can describe it,
Look at those horns!
Yes, there's like a massive goat-like horns on top with white hair, blue skin. You then have, like, this ridiculously detailed armor covering part of the chest and all the way down the arm, which then leads into an overly sized weapon. And then on top of that, you have what I can only describe as... double-jointed legs, which apparently she created by having, like, platform shoe that leads onto a sloped plank of wood, which is then in turn surrounded by the material that then bounce on springs. It's, like, this unbelievably ridiculous contraption in order to replicate something which... You know how sometimes you have artists who just go way over the top in terms of their designs and add loads of intricate little details? Like, there's all this fluff, none of the... toes aren't even symmetrical now that I'm looking at them. There's bracelets and chains hanging off it, and the fact that she went out of her way to recreate them all, that's just insane.
Yeah, and honestly, all I can think is, cosplay. Bringing out your inner steampunk since the early 2000s.
Oh god, yeah. If you ever look at someone who's really into steampunk, they go way into a ridiculous amount of depth.
Yeah, and I mean, even here, because just to get the boots down, this person had to delve deep into steampunk territory and make an invention.
Yeah.
Count me as impressed. I may not look at cosplay much, but that's impressive.
I can't think of any other answers, so that's a very simple question, so I'm sure this next one from Emergency Zero will be just as simple. Oh boy.
There are so many games out there that start off cute and lighthearted, only to transition into something dark, sad, and just downright depressing. Examples include Undertale, Doki Doki Literature Club, Earthbound, etc. Have you ever seen a game that starts off dark and depressing, only to transition into something lighthearted and fun?
That's a good question. Because this is the thing, it's a classic storytelling thing in video gaming to start off light and fun and then slowly draw the player in. For instance, I've been replaying Tales of Symphonia and that game does it masterfully.
Yeah.
But the other way around is something that doesn't really happen. Usually whenever a game starts dark, it keeps the edge the whole way through. Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yeah, plus it's often kind of tricky to go the other direction because you often have to start out cheerful in order to give people a reason to actually play, and then make it bright and cheerful at the end of it. You have to be very careful about doing it in such a way that it doesn't completely undermine the tone you established at the start. Because I'm 90% sure that if you made it so that, just to take a random example, if you made it that something like, say, Dark Souls got really happy and positive towards the end, like you started having brighter colours and everyone was talking about the positivity of love and hope, I can guarantee you there'll be a crap ton of reviews talking about how jarring it is.
I mean, the only real way to do that is like a shift in tone. I could talk about the overall Fallout series here, which in Fallout 1 was bleak as hell, and in New Vegas, for instance, was a lot more hopeful. But actually, New Vegas itself is sort of an example of a decent tone shift, because it starts off dark. I mean, you have your brains blown out. But as you resolve that plot line, you begin to influence the overall world around you and can really make it a better place. So that's something.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good way of looking at it. The only other one I can think of is, well, I would say Undertale, but the thing is, like, Undertale, it keeps, for lack of a better term, it keeps yo-yoing. It starts off cheerful, then gets really dark, then gets really cheerful again, and actually in a really positive way, but then also has to throw in some dark twists if you decide to play it again, so...
Yeah.
I know this is technically cheating since it's not a video game, but Madoka Magica also kind of does this when it starts off cheerful, gets unbelievably dark, and is then really cheerful and uplifting at the end. Not so much the movie that followed, which is actually part of the reason some fans like to pretend that movie didn't exist, but
Yeah. I'm not familiar, but I've heard the rumors.
Yeah, long and short of it about spoiling this, a lot of people don't like the movie because the entire movie is about someone undoing the happy ending, and then kind of ends on an ambiguous note, which, yeah...
Wow. Yeah, you don't do that to a dude.
Yeah, I think those are probably the two best examples we can think of at the top of our head. Oh, actually, there is one other possibility I can think of now that it comes to mind. Tales of Berseria. That is another game that starts off really dark and then gets more positive and upbeat towards the end. I mean, there is still some tragedy weaved within it, but again, it is more uplifting and positive, especially when the game is essentially, or at the very least, Velvet's character development is a massive deconstruction of the whole "my dead family" trope.
Yeah. Still need to play that one. I'm on a massive Tales kick, so that may be my next goal.
I can recommend it. It is on Steam after all, but anyway.
Give me all the tales. Spin me your yarns. But yeah, those are generally our answers. I'm sticking with Fallout because especially in later games, they sort of stick to the whole tack of starting out in the nitty-gritty post-apocalyptic universe and then making you realize, maybe life here isn't so bad after all.
Yeah, that is definitely a good message to hold on to. And definitely doesn't relate to anything that's happening now. No siree!
Okay, our next question comes from McDuck, who says,
Star Wars is known for its planets made around a single theme, whether it's a city planet, ice planet, or any of the desert planets. What planet would you design around a single theme?
I'll start this off by saying I wouldn't, because for the most part, that's just sort of one-note design, and I don't do that. I needlessly overcomplicate every single setting I make. But if I could break that habit, I'm a sucker. I love desert planets.
But Star Wars has, 3 already!
It's true. I mean, in another universe, because I would not inflict another desert planet onto the Star Wars verse. I really wouldn't. You see Tatooine in literally every single movie and game.
I know, and I don't personally have any problem with the new films, especially not compared to other people, who, boy. But I will admit that part of me groaned a little bit when they went, oh, by the way, here we have Jakku's, and it's a desert planet. I went, oh no, come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a little on the nose. I know they were trying to pay tribute to A New Hope, and even as someone who's willing to look at The Last Jedi more critically, I will always prefer The Force Awakens, but that was a little silly.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of what themes they haven't done, because they've done the casino planet already, so we can't take the page out of Sonic's book. They've done the forest planet with Endor, snow planet with Hoth. I was about to suggest a planet that I had from a science fiction series I created as a teenager. Don't ask about it, it was shite. Which was basically mostly water but had loads of tiny islands all over it. But now that I think about it, whilst they haven't shown it in the movies, there is the planet Calamari, which was brought up in the Star Wars Expanded Universe, which is where Admiral Itzatrak Akbar comes from, and it is exactly a ocean planet with loads of islands on it.
Well, I approve of that. And while you were listing out your idea, I just realized the single note that I would want, on which I would want to base a planet. Totally not harkening back to my other favorite GameCube era JRPG, not in the slightest. Sky Pirate Planet.
Yeah, that could work, floating islands. Yeah, I'm actually surprised they haven't done it yet, now that you brought it up.
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't made the Skies of Arcadia reference. Wait, did I just let the cat out of the bag?
I mean, admittedly, it's a trope that happens in a lot of JRPGs, but yeah, that would be pretty cool. I guess maybe they would think of it as a special effects night, but went, Cloud City. They have already done that, damn it!
Yeah, true they've done that, but I would make it, more space piratey, because that's always a thing that I like about the Star Wars universe. Although, to be fair, their space pirates are literally just smugglers, but, you can stay on brand, sort of.
Actually, yeah, that's true. I mean, Tatooine is basically the criminal planet. You could easily have a pirate planet with an atmosphere similar to the Cloud City, so yeah, that's totally a good idea for that one.
I like to think so, at least. I'm not going to toot my own horn, though, because, Skies of Arcadia. I have no shame.
And since my island one's already done, then I guess, I don't know. Donut Planet. There we go. Okay, so...
To be fair, I'd love to live on that one.
Especially if they're glazed. God help me.
Same, though. Oh, my weakness. Oh, actually, no. If the planet was based around glazed lemon jelly filled donuts, it would be the end of me, literally. I would leave that planet on my last legs of sugar induced multiple organ failure, and it would be a worthy end. I cannot believe that is a sentence that just left my mouth.
I don't know what's worse, that sentence or the fact that as soon as you said it, instantly I had a mental image of you on that said planet, lying in a comatose state with that classic score, Do, 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 do. Just to invoke the tragedy of it all.
Okay. It's only January, but that has already won the award for the best mental image of the entire year.
Oh, great. Now I have to top that one. So, moving on to Luffy McDuck's second question.
Do you believe it's important to preserve video games for the future as an art form and entertainment? Yes, some companies are doing it, but the more obscure games only get saved by fans who dump the ROMs online. And then someone takes them down.
Honestly, yes, but I'm not sure how that would come to be, because it's difficult to preserve digital media. I know that's technically been done, but I'm pretty sure the copies of the first ever films, for instance, just don't exist anymore, because, well, people can't really play those mediums any longer.
Yeah, that's precisely it. I mean, you may be able to create a ROM for the disc by copying it, but otherwise, unless there was a specific organization that specifically made itself a video game museum and was willing to putting the time and money into getting the licenses, copying the ROMs, and then storing them someplace, because yeah, like you said, technology compatibility is always going to be an issue, especially when a lot of these games were designed specifically to work on one console and its hardware limitations, and it's not that easy to copy across.
Yeah, it's it's not like preserving books. That's easy. Paper lasts forever and people will never forget how to read. But with digital media, you're relying a lot on the technology of the time. Like, I love video games and want to preserve them as a form of storytelling, but the unfortunate truth is that more and more as technology progresses, things become obsolete faster. Just look at my Lenovo computer. I bought it in 2016. It is now 2 years later, and it is on Struggle Street.
Yeah, I believe it's Moore's Law when technology keeps getting more advanced and obsolete every year and a half or something like that. But yeah, it's a constant struggle to keep up, and pretty much any organization is either going to have to try and get all the disks and devices and keep them in storage, or they're going to have to go purely digital and have some kind of archive and hardware where they can keep it stocked. And it definitely has to be a separate organization. I know people are saying, oh, game companies need to think about this kind of thing. As hard as it sounds, no, they don't. Because the other problem is, it's something we don't like to talk about, but it's something that has to be addressed. Whilst we all have this idea of art as like this universal transient state where everybody lives forever and everyone can just create whatever they want to create, there is a problem. We need money to live. So many of these projects, so many of the pieces we call art, were created by people in attempts to get some desperate money. I mesistine even stuff like the Sistine Chapel was done by commission, and even Mona Lisa was something that Leonardo da Vinci made for money. Mind you, hilariously, Leonardo da Vinci never actually released Mona Lisa to the public because A, he was a perfectionist who wouldn't release it until he felt it was absolutely perfect, and B, sorry, I'm laughing because he's a man after my own heart, because B, he kept getting distracted with other projects and never actually finished it.
I've never related so much to Leonardo da Vinci.
Like, I'm not kidding. There was this one horse statue someone had asked him to do, and he delayed it for, I think it was close to a decade, because he kept finding something else to do that was more interesting. So he'd divert, do an experiment with a helicopter, study some animals, and then he would come back and go, oh yeah, that horse, better make a start on it. Oh, hang on though.
Ooh, I could be inventing the gun.
Also, before we go back to this topic, one other fact about Leonardo da Vinci I learned, which I really love just because it's an example of ye olde sass. The whole getting distracted by other projects and being a perfectionist, that kind of delayed one of his most famous works, The Last Supper. However, since it was commissioned by the church, they weren't very happy with that, and they often sent friars round to respectfully and spiritually tell him to hurry the hell up. Leonardo wrote a letter which, loosely translated, said something along the lines of, I should explain to you all that what has been giving me the most trouble is the face of Judas, who was an egregious villain. Every day I would go into the marketplace and even the seedier parts of town to find a face that captured the sheer villainy that would match Judas, but I have not found such a face so far. However, I am planning to use the features of the friar who came to complain, as he matches the description perfectly.
I did not expect, whenever I came into this recording, that I would come out with an undying love of Leonardo da Vinci, but here we are. He is truly, truly a snarker after my own existence.
But yeah, back to the modern digital art. This has all been a very long way of saying that, unfortunately, the reason that companies aren't going out their way to preserve video game history is that they're desperately trying to just make money where they can now to stay afloat. And unfortunately, unless you have an organization that's determined to act as a games museum, no one's going to be working to preserving this. If anything, they're just going to be working on their next paycheck, or trying to hold on to your franchise rights for all they're worth.
Yeah, and you do make a fantastic point about the whole money issue, because just look at Final Fantasy. I may not be a fan, but it's a series that would undoubtedly deserve preservation if we were ever able to do such a thing. But even then, Final Fantasy 1 was literally the last stand of a dying company, and it accidentally became the biggest thing ever.
There are so many games like that which are all like last-ditch efforts but then became seriously successful. In fact, one last minor story. Do you know Crash Kart Racing?
Yeah, actually.
Do you want to know the reason why Naughty Dog chose aliens as the final enemy?
Oh dear. What was the reason?
They chose it because at the time they were really annoyed by, I'm trying to remember who it was, I think it was either Sony or Midway, who were giving them crap over the licenses and trying to claim that they own Crash Bandicoot and threatening to take it away and all that. So they made aliens the final villain because they were hoping it would be the jumping of the shark moment that would make the fans hate the game, but as it turned...
Oh my god. Okay, that's sad. They legitimately tried to end the series with something just genuinely terrible.
But on the flip side, the opposite happened and it convinced them to keep going, but still...
True. It's sort of like Fire Emblem Awakening, although that was sort of a game that accidentally, with hindsight, rustled my jimmies a lot. Frickin' waifu emblem. But it did save the company.
That's true, and hey, Fire Emblem is now in a probably the best position it's ever been, so even if you put aside the waifu wars, I think we should be okay. I mean, admittedly, we haven't seen anything else from Three Houses for a while, but what we have seen looks really, really good.
Yeah, and, oh god, can't believe I'm making this comparison, but to use a contemporary example, it's like when a wrestler is really struggling, there's a last-ditch change to their character, and then they're punched in the face and suddenly become popular.
Good old Becky Lynch. Yeah.
Talk about a way to revive your career. Sometimes it takes being whacked right in the noggin, or in this case, going full anime and attracting a bunch of neckbeards to the series.
Oh, God. But yeah, we have gone all over the place, but yeah, hopefully somewhere there you find a satisfactory answer, Luffy McDuck.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting 2019 the way we always mean to go on, by completely straying off topic in the Q&A section. Our next question comes from Toon Junkie.
In the game Bayonetta, there are powerful beings known as umbra witches who can cast powerful spells with their hair called wicked weaves. My question is this: could you defeat an umbra witch by shaving her head?
My only answer is this: those games suck, so I'm going to try.
Yeah, I would say give it a try. I mean, first off, you'd have to get close enough to them, and considering they can summon demons to their hair and mess around with time, that might be a bit difficult, but if you can manage to shave their hair off, all I will say is learn from mythology, and for the love of God, keep shaving it. Did you see what happened with Samson? They shaved his hair off, they had him jailed, and yet it never occurred to them, oh, maybe we should stop his hair growing back, otherwise he might be able to rip the entire column down.
Yeah, that. And in fact, to achieve the ultimate goal of wiping out the Bayonetta franchise, I think I would custom spellcraft a piece of sorcery just for the job, like a spell based around magical shaving of a target, useless in any other situation, but in this case it will prove to the witches in question that what can go wrong will go wrong, and I will call that spell Occam's Razor.
Oh, God.
You know what I said about starting 2019 the way we need to go on? Puns!
Oh, God. I was wondering where this was going.
Be afraid when I start to ramble, because a really cringeworthy joke is bound to follow.
Speaking of which, we are going to end this session with yet another question from Toon Junkie, and he asks,
Sven, being the world's greatest criminal ventriloquist, could you please tell all of us listening at home what was your favourite act of villainy?
Well, I mean, I would, but a criminal ventriloquist is not complete without his puppet, and currently my puppet is up in my closet, holding down the fort against all the flies and the foreign hostile invaders of the Mouse Kingdom. So I guess you're just gonna have to speculate.
Like we said, 2018 has been a very weird year. I mean, I don't know why the Mouse Kingdom decided to cause an uprising right now. I don't know anyone who would have tried to infringe on their borders. Oh, wait. Never mind. Anyway.
Also, I heard rumors that they're dealing with a rip in the space-time continuum, and it's really lowering the resale value. Jokes on brand!
Yep. Yes, indeed. The Space-Time Continuum are the proud sponsor of this podcast. Please get the frick somebody. Anyway.
We need money!
And on that note, that brings yet another glorious Q&A session to a close. Thank you, everyone who sent us in questions, and as always, please keep them coming, because I keep saying this, but it's true, they do make this show a lot of fun to record and edit, so...
I mean, we may snark, but we love you all, and especially love the monthly contributions of the illustrious Toon Junkie.
And so with this question passed, we now move on to our next section, which is...
Reviews!
This is the section where each of us reviews something we've read, watched, or played this month. And Sven, I hear from the grapevine that you have something to review this month.
Yeah. Okay, I'll preface this by saying it's not going to be a long review because, well, we'll get into the plot. But for whatever reason, I was sort of on a more favorable WWE kick. Actually, no, I remember the reason. Becky Lynch was in it and she had just started really becoming popular. Well, I mean, she was always popular, but then she got over. But for that reason, despite knowing how much it would suck, I watched The Marine 6 Close Quarters, starring Mike the Miz Mizanin, Shawn Michaels, and Becky Lynch, in a role that I've heard rumors was what convinced Vince McMahon to turn her heel, which is funny.
So, remind me, this is one of those movies WWE makes themselves to try and get their stars into the movie business, as opposed to the old days when stars were successful enough to do that on their own, or?
Yeah, as opposed to the old, well, I won't say old days because John Cena has become a major movie talent, and honestly, I almost prefer him in that role, sort of the same way with The Rock, but the Marine 6 is, well, the Marine franchise, in fact, is basically WWE's way of getting their stars into the biz. And, I mean, I guess another form of income, not that these movies will ever make that much income for them. Yeah, it's basically making movies to inevitably to Vince McMahon's taste, because, you know, he's a control freak, and for some reason really loves hammering on, as we could tell by the 80s and 90s, on the whole America theme.
Yeah, I kind of figured.
I'm just gonna put it this way. The Marine franchise is basically the Call of Duty series if none of the actors cared.
Oh, God. Yeah, I can kind of see that. I mean, to your examples, I think the only way for WWE stars to get into the movies these days is either with Vince McMahon or staying around for long enough to the point where they get enough popularity and fame to get in there. Like, John Cena had to stay in the company for a really, really long time, and it's only when he went part-time that he was able to get as many movie roles as he has now. Although, that said, when he did come back, he'd learned that lightning fist move, and oh my god, that's so bad.
Okay, 2 fun facts, because I'm gonna go into fun facts a lot in this review, because, once again, there's not much plot to talk about, and the plot that's there is hilarious. 2 fun facts, actually, for the audience at home, and 1 for Jonin, in fact. First and foremost, apparently John Cena's lifelong dream was to become a voice actor, but then he got into wrestling because look at him. So, well done on that end. He's a great voice actor. Second, apparently he learned the lightning fist move just to screw with people.
I can understand that because they're always mocking him for having only like 5 moves, and so he was coming back and saying having a 6th move of doom, which I would be perfectly fine with. In fact, honestly, I also like the fact that John Cena, when asked why he came back with such a goofy haircut, he said, yeah, I grew it out for the film, but because people have been talking about how much they hate it, I'm gonna keep it now.
Yeah, basically, this is a thing I've been noticing. John Cena, more and more, as his career sort of draws to a close, has pretty much just dedicated the rest of his days as a wrestler to trolling people.
Yeah, I can understand why, in fairness, especially with all the flack people have given him. But yeah, my only problem with the Lightning Fist is that even in the movie wrestling, which is based around choreographed moves and things that aren't practical in a fight, it just looks so limp. It basically all he does is he crosses his arms together and then just sticks one arm out. It doesn't look like it should hurt anyone at all. Like, even when he used it on Andrade Cien Almas a couple of weeks ago, Andrade looked like he was having to really sell the move and make himself look like an idiot. Like, oh, a light tap. Oh!
Yeah. Oh my god, he had to sell for it this very week as of this review. And credit to Andrade for making his opponents look good, because he always does. I mean, he's a luchador. He's great at that. But credit to Andrade for not only taking the move, but making it look like he was just Falcon punched by this ridiculous stepping back fist that Rafiki did better in The Lion King.
Oh, God. And yeah, sorry for taking you off the rails there. So, Marine 6, dare I ask what the plot actually is?
Okay, I'm just gonna go over this really quickly. Oh god, I have to look up character names because I don't remember them, because honestly I didn't care that much.
Oh god, whilst trying to help Sven, I found out it's called
The Marine 6 Close Quarters.
Yes, that is a thing. Okay, so, The Marine 6 Close Quarters. Former Marine Jake Carter, the hero of the series, played by Mike the Miz Mizanin, alongside his former CEO and comrade in the military, Luke Trapper, played by the illustrious Shawn Michaels, finds himself dragged into a gang war when he stumbles upon a kidnapping of the daughter of a prominent juror prosecuting the Irish mob. I did not know that was still a thing in America. A crime exacted by professional assassin and mob enforcer Madeline Hayes, played by Becky Lynch, aka the best thing about this movie.
Oh, God.
And essentially, it's an excuse plot.
I was going to say, the instant you said kidnapped by the Irish mob, I thought, oh no, don't tell me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, basically, that is all you need to know about the film. It's an excuse plot, the villains are Irish, Becky Lynch is in it. I'll give the cast this much. The 3 major stars are wonderful. The Miz, he's like The Rock. He excels with material that is deliberately bad. Like, it's... I mean, you could probably tell watching his promos, but it's just where he is most comfortable. I think the one cast member that took the plot the most seriously was Shawn Michaels, but that's not really saying much, because he basically just plays Shawn Michaels. And as has been proven time and time again since, what was it, August? Becky Lynch plays a great villain.
Well, it's kind of weird, but I mean, they're kind of trying to play her more as an anti-hero, but yeah, I can see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, even whenever she was full heel in that run, as short-lived as that was, she played the role to an art form, and when I looked into Becky's background, I learned why. Before wrestling, among the other things she did to make a living, for some ungodly reason she was criticized in one of Ronda Rousey's self-made promos for being a flight attendant. Another thing that she did before getting into wrestling was acting school, in which she earned a degree. So, big character actor.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. In fact, that actually... For those who don't know much about wrestling, we should explain. Becky Lynch, part of the reason why she was so popular for the longest time is because in wrestling, you obviously need athletic ability, but because it's scripted and you're playing a character, you also need the charisma in order to play your character with conviction, which Becky Lynch did for a really long time. And even though The Miz is a heel or bad guy who actually plays someone who is cowardly and egotistical, part of the reason he's so popular is because he's charismatic enough to play it with full sincerity. So
yeah, and it makes particular sense with those two because they are in fact actors. Like Mike Mizanin was on a reality TV show before he joined WWE, which, if you knew nothing about wrestling and just knew it as big guys throwing themselves at each other, you would probably be really confused by. But it makes so much sense whenever you look at his actual character and what he's known for in the WWE, which is being tremendously unlikable. And that's sort of the point of reality TV shows. And in this instance, that whole natural charisma thing plays to the forefront because, legitimately, the only good things about this movie are the 3 stars. You have The Miz, who's a reality TV star. You have Becky Lynch, who is literally an actress. And you have Shawn Michaels, who is just below The Rock, probably the most charismatic being ever to enter a ring. So, it makes sense that the main cast would be enjoyable. The rest of this movie is dreadful. It sucks. And I love it.
Oh, dear. Well, I guess to be on the positive side, the 3 wrestler actors, the only good thing about it is the action at least entertaining, even if it's dumb.
Okay, yeah, the choreography is great, which you would expect from a studio funded by WWE. These are people who know what they're doing, and it does show. The draws are 4 things: the leads and the action. And, absolutely none of the extras can act. And absolutely none of the supporting cast can act. But when they're put in positions where they don't have to, yeah, the movie's good in that regard. And I'll admit, mostly because humor-wise I am an 11-year-old, some of the jokes are actually pretty funny. Although that mostly comes down to the comedic timing of Mike Mizanin and Shawn Michaels, who are geniuses at comedy.
Well, The Miz is more of a comedic heel, so I guess that makes sense.
And Shawn Michaels was more of a comedic heel, so...
And I guess for both of them, it's also for Becky Lynch at the time, part of the appeal of doing this is for them to break out of their roles in WWE and to actually be the hero, I guess.
Yeah, like Miz and Shawn are obviously the leads, and Becky is obviously the main antagonist, and... honestly, it's sort of like this was an exercise in playing against type and also sort of a hint of things to come in Becky's case. Although I will say that, well, her heel and then anti-hero run in WWE went better. This is not a criticism of her because I do believe that Becky's whole shtick with this movie was knowing that she was in a steaming pile of crap and deciding to ham up her character description to the highest degree possible.
Oh, right. So rather than being anti-hero, she went full-on villainess, basically.
Oh, yeah. Like, imagine a Bond villain, but edgier.
Oh, God.
That alone is hilarious, even though I don't think that was what Vince was going for. But, I mean, it's hard to tell because this movie is so bad that it crosses over into hilarity so well that I have to think that they were going for so bad it's good.
It's often hard to tell with these kind of things. I mean, often part of the reason it becomes so bad it's good, I guess nanar, if you want to use the pretentious term some people use, is when the director is completely ignorant of how crap it is and is just doing it for the sake of what they think is art. That's what makes it a lot funnier than it actually is. It's part of the reason why so many people enjoy seeing The Room, just because it's a movie that clearly thinks it's the greatest bit of storytelling ever, and yet seems to be completely ignorant of the fact that, well, Tommy Wiseau sounds like Tommy Wiseau, and the actors are just so uninterested in their role.
That's sort of the sense that I get from this movie too. Like, I can tell you, the supporting cast does not care. With one exception, the guy who plays the juror whose daughter was kidnapped is actually a professional, which amazes me for a number of reasons. And as it turns out, he actually had a high-profile voice acting role recently, so he actually takes the role seriously, and those scenes with him in it sort of work, even though they're out of place. They feel like something out of a Taken movie. By which I mean, they're serious moments in a movie that is otherwise pure Gouda cheese.
Well, I think in fairness to those kind of people, sometimes as actors you just take whatever you can get, because it's either that or just live off canned food and hope something better comes along.
Yeah, we actually know an actor who's had to deal with that, I do believe, so...
Yeah.
Props to that guy for actually trying. The rest of the supporting cast is just dreadful. I swear Becky Lynch's enforcer is played by Lars Sullivan, doing the worst Irish accent there ever was, and that is coming from someone who does them all the time in Age of Worms.
Yeah. Yeah, oh god, that's gotta be really unfortunate for Becky Lynch, because here's the thing, Becky is actually Irish, but if it's Vince McMahon, who, if he does know what cultural sensitivity is, he made a vow on his mother's grave years ago to go the complete opposite direction for whatever reason.
Stuck in the 80s, my guy. Stuck in the 80s. So there's that. There's a horde of supporting mooks that do not care at all. And I swear that the kidnapping victim is just Vince basically saying, this is how teenagers talk, right?
Oh god.
The character references Leroy Jenkins, unironically. And I'm like, if you're gonna reference memes, Vince, at least don't reference memes from 2003.
I mean, the problem with referencing memes is that they date very quickly. Ralph Breaks the Internet ends on a Rickroll, and everyone's just staring at it and going, that was dated when you started making this movie, dude, come on.
It's true, though. Although I'm in no position to criticize because I still listen to Numa Numa. Anyway, there's that. The supporting cast is terrible, especially the ones who try so desperately to do Irish accents. When you bring it up, I just pity Becky, because she's an actual Irish woman in a room full of people who do not know what they're doing.
Maybe that was the reason she went all villainous ham in the first place, because it's like the only way she could get the pent-up aggression out is, I will fucking kill you all! Oh, and you, Marie, too, whatever.
Yeah, basically that. It could totally be a coping mechanism. That's what I would do. On another positive note, I mentioned this earlier, but some of the jokes actually did make me laugh. Like, for instance, in one scene, Shawn Michaels' character Luke is injured, and in the process and aftermath of that, he is made to change shirts. And the only shirt on hand in this rundown warehouse in which the movie takes place is a white shirt with sparkly blue letters that read, Foxy Grandma. And he says... and I think this was an ad-lib because it's just who Sean is. He says, "Great, I'm gonna die in this."
Yeah, I can just imagine Shawn Michaels saying that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, Miz holds his own too because he knows what kind of movie he's in. He's the star, and like I said, he excels with So Bad It's Good. It's sort of the point of his character. So he just plays his character as a cheeseball, generic action hero in an action movie, complete with snarky one-liners at certain points. And the whole time I'm like, okay, if anyone ever tried to do this in an unironic fashion, I would loathe it. But because it's Miz, who excels at cheese, I could get into this.
I think the only other person who could excel in that situation would be Chris Evans, and that was just based purely on his performance in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, where he was a generic action hero going into a payphone and going,
"Now you listen close and you listen hard, bucko. The next click you hear is me hanging up. The one after that is me pulling the trigger."
Okay, that's great, not least because I know Chris Evans is Captain America, so the contrast is hysterically funny.
But yeah, I can totally see that when you have an actor in an action film who realizes what they're in and just goes, you know what, feck it, let's go all in, then yeah, that does make a movie a lot more entertaining. Even if the sum of its parts are not that great.
Yeah, and believe me, they're not, like, at all. I cannot get over how, like, even by Call of Duty standards, the plot is bad. But a movie just sort of makes it work on the strength of its three leads. You have Miz just leaning into the cheese, you have Sean playing Sean, and you have Becky deciding, you know what, nobody's gonna see this movie. and I'm surrounded by idiots who cannot do an Irish accent, so I'm just gonna go all in. And on those notes, I ended up enjoying the movie, even though I really shouldn't. I feel like if it was done by any other production company that isn't WWE, it would have been completely boring. But we're dealing with wrestlers who, just by their job descriptions, are masters of the completely stupid. So, this movie sucked. I'm not going to sugarcoat that. But it sucked in a way that was charming, which is a phrase that you should not take out of context.
I can totally see that. Would you recommend seeing it to anyone who doesn't actually know who these people are? Do you think they're charismatic enough to carry it enough that way? Or would your only recommendation be to anyone who likes wrestling or The Miz or anyone like that?
I think this is a niche thing for wrestling fans because when you know who the leads are and like the context behind how they got here, the entertainment factor is ramped up considerably. To someone viewing from the outside, who would have had to buy this movie because it was direct to DVD, I'm not sure I could recommend because you really have to know who Miz, Sean, and Becky are to appreciate why they played their characters in the way they did.
I guess that's to be expected. I mean, villainous Becky probably only works because she, well, at the time of filming, was more the charismatic heroine, so it would be why you appreciated her going full-ham villainous. To anyone else, it would just be someone going over the top.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, the notion that Miz and Becky knew what kind of movie they were in and just decided, you know what? I'm gonna make this as ridiculous as possible. Makes it all the more entertaining, at least to me, because I mean, I know them from the WWE, I'm familiar with their work, and I'm like, yeah, totes in character. Miz is generally a goofball of a human being. He plays a natural heel, but as a person, he's just silly, and Becky just likes making things as fun as possible, even whenever she's playing the villain. So it makes total sense. And Sean is Sean.
Yeah.
He is walking charisma.
That makes total sense. Sometimes you do need that kind of background to enjoy films like these. Like, honestly, for me, The Room only became enjoyable for me once I had started reading parts of The Disaster Artist and realizing how things ended up the way they did, and that just kind of adds once you get the context, it's more enjoyable for me that way. as opposed to just watching it to laugh at the bad plot and the stupid actors.
Yeah, exactly. Context can make things so much funnier. And on that note, I'm not going to spoil anything in case someone out there for some reason really does want to watch this movie. But just driving home sort of why you'd have to be a wrestling fan to truly appreciate this is the final sequence, which is a matchup that I did not know I needed in my life. Shawn Michaels versus Becky Lynch. It was so cool. So cool.
Nice. I bet that's probably the only time we're ever going to see that match because of WWE's intergender policies and all that.
Yeah, that and the fact that Shawn is 53 and definitely not returning again.
Oh, well, that too, yeah.
So even if pigs did fly and they allowed that to happen, I mean, they allowed it to happen to James Ellsworth, but James Ellsworth is literally just a punchline.
Yeah.
I don't believe Shawn would be coming back for that. If nothing else, I think he's going to be too busy filming the Marine 7.
That's fair enough. And also, Becky has already been damaging veterans when she was talking to Edge that one time.
Yeah, and recently John Cena.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that, yeah.
God, you know your burn is masterful when John Cena just has to stand there and laugh. John Cena, the master of the mic.
Back to Marine 6.
Close quarters.
Yeah, really quickly, I will say this. If this movie was in fact what inspired Vince to turn Becky heel, first of all, that's ridiculous. But second of all, I'm glad it turned out that way, because look at her now. Like, seriously.
Yeah, I can definitely see this movie's existence being a positive, even if it's only in a very meta sense.
Yeah, I'd say that. I enjoyed it purely because I got the context, and honestly, those three in this situation in such a bad movie being so deliberately cheesy is awesome. And it's made awesome by the fact that I'm familiar with their work. If nothing else, I don't regret watching it.
Well, that's good at least. So, on that quasi-recommendation in a very meta sense,
we got to a way that I can recommend it, so it was roundabout, but we got there eventually.
Indeed. I have something that I'm also going to quickly review, and it's...
Time.
So, funny story. Originally, I then followed Sven's review with a review of Spider-Man Enter the Spiderverse, which I had seen literally the night before recording, and loved immensely and couldn't wait to go on and on about how great it was. However, a few days after that, my editing PC died. So, I lost several weeks trying to repair it, and as a result of that, there is not enough time for me to edit this review. So, unfortunately, we're gonna have to go with the Cliff Notes version. Like I said before, I really love the movie, and I think this has actually become my favourite Spider-Man movie. Any criticisms I do have are incredibly minor and nitpicky and honestly don't matter in the long run. Not when you have such a great story and fantastic animation that makes full use of the fact that this is a comic book movie to actually use comic book conventions and framing, but in a way that feels natural and not gimmicky, including one amazing shot which not only sums up how the spider sense works, but also a great metaphor of the anxiety and paranoid awareness you have in high school. Also, to quickly use a line I said in the original review, if you want an example of what, as an animated filmmaker, my favourite use of colour and lighting and framing is, just as a general filmmaking aesthetic, just look at Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. That's all you need to do. Just every one of those aspects is used beautifully, and I really wish I had enough time to rave about it and continuously point to other examples, but yeah, unfortunately, here we are. Just take my word for it. Go and see Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. You will not regret it. It is a fun movie that just looks so gorgeous. And I better get back to the original podcast now, so let's do the time warp again. No, I am not singing it. Now it is time for us to prove that anything can be reviewed in our final section, which is
Quickfire Reviews.
This is the section where we review everything else we've read, watched or played, but within the maximum time limit of 60 seconds. Sven, do you have anything for this?
As it so happens, I'm starting the new year off the proper way, and I do in fact have something to throw into the Quickfire Reviews section, sort of on brand from my review earlier, actually.
Oh, nice. Okay then, your time starts now.
Fire Pro Wrestling World. Oh man, okay, so this game has no plot. I have not actually touched the combat system because I suck at fighting games, but this is a pro wrestling fighting game where you can create your own wrestler. Like, top to bottom, moveset, logic, personality, appearance, all that good stuff. And I am addicted. Oh, the character creation's so good. Someone help me, I'm in tag team hell.
Yeah, I wish I could help, but I'm in pretty much the same boat. In fact, hands up, I was the one who recommended it to Sven.
You totally were.
I mean, the create a wrestler mode is bad enough, but the fact that it also allows you to create your own arenas, create your own title belts, import your own music in for fights and entrance themes, it's just... oh, man.
Yeah, it's so much fun. I have 3 belts going, their own separate champions. I'm practically developing a tag team wrestling universe as if to spite Vince McMahon. Plus, you can import other people's creations, which of course means that I have a bunch of imported WWE wrestlers, and I have officially been able to stage matches between Aleister Black and The Undertaker, and between Becky Lynch and Shawn Michaels. It comes back around.
Nice. And speaking of video games...
Smash Bros. Ultimate. Yeah, I picked that up. It's Smash Bros. It's really fun. The characters are really balanced. In fact, this is the most fun I've had playing Donkey Kong for quite some time. And yeah, it's Smash Bros. It's as good as people say it is. Not really much I can say beyond that.
I mean, I'm interested in it. I still need to work up enough money to actually buy one of those platforms. But, you know, I'm interested in it. It sounds fun, and it's Smash Bros. It exists just for dream matches. Like Fire Pro Wrestling World.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, there are loads of small details I'm really happy with, like all the Fire Emblem characters having their English voices now, including Ewan Lowenfaller's Marth. Although there are also some small nitpicky parts, like I'm completely baffled as to why Cloud still has his Japanese voice and why they haven't bothered changing Lynn's vocals or the assist trophy, but what the hey.
Please give us Wendy Lee, she's so much better. So much better.
Also, briefly, the spirit mode is odd, but it is really enjoyable, especially when some of your favorite characters end up being insanely powerful spirits. Like, you may be happy to know this, man, but Alicia is a spirit who can transform, aka evolve, and become even more powerful than she was before, and not only does she have a high power level, but she gives your characters an additional mid-air jump, which, holy crap, that's useful.
Okay, that's awesome. And I'm glad they gave such a great effect to Alicia, who, I'm not gonna lie, is probably my favorite Lord character.
Yeah, that's totally the reason I brought it up. But anyway, and I've just got 2 more quickfire reviews to do. First off, another game review.
Super Mario Odyssey. The plot can basically just be summarized as, Mario, you're late. Again. But, despite all of that, it's definitely one of my favorite Mario games in years, at the very least in the top 3, just for the great music, the atmosphere in all 3 worlds, and I really do love how they've handled the Power Moon system, in that there are some plot-important ones, but the other ones are just sort of scattered throughout the level, and you have to find them rather than being thrown into a course and told that you have to only find one specifically, and yeah, just a nice mix of platforming and exploration. So, yeah, Mario Odyssey, really enjoyable, and even though I'm probably the last person who owns a Switch but hasn't played it until now.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Once again, need to work up the money to buy a Switch, because at this point it sounds really fun.
It has Valkyria Chronicles 4 on it. That's something I can lure you with.
Happy dance, happy dance, happy dance. I can play my favorite snipers.
Yes, in fact, actually, they've also re-released the original Valkyria Chronicles as well, so...
Sweet. Yeah, I need to look into that.
And last but not least...
Thunderbolt Fantasy Season 2, The Sword Seekers. For those who don't know, Thunderbolt Fantasy is a wuxia kung fu puppet series which is awesome, has some incredible action sequences and some equally incredible character work. This season is not as focused as the last one because the last season was trying to be more or less standalone. This one is trying to establish a franchise. It's more focused on the different character relationships as opposed to an overall goal, but I still really enjoyed it just for some of the great twists and turns with the characters and how they developed over the course of the season, and that combined with the great character moments which also often lead into equally cool action scenes. And yeah, this has honestly been my favourite action series of the year, so if you have a Crunchyroll account, just watch it, for goodness sake, just watch it. And season 1 as well.
Yeah, I'm totes gonna watch just for the music alone. Also, your stunning recommendations over the past couple of years or so.
Thank you for that.
What can I say? You're a great hype man.
Although maybe not phrase it that way, otherwise I'm going to end up having to hype up Brock Lesnar for some no apparent reason.
Or talk about Bobby Lashley's amazing physique. Now, before we dip into more nightmare fuel...
Yeah, this is probably the best note to end in. Yeah, once again, thank you to everyone for listening. This episode has been fun, and I personally think a great way to start this new year, and I hope you do too. But until the next month, I've been the Jonin Monkey.
And I've been Sven the Crusader, going into 2019. Always beware the threat of Bobby Lashley's booty.
Babble's Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review and discussion show hosted by the Jonin Monkey and Sven the Crusader. For more news, reviews, and occasional random opinions, follow me on Twitter at @TheJoninMonkey. For MP3 downloads, go to thejoninmonkey.podbean.com. All music used in the episode belongs to its original owners. This year's ending theme is The Silver Nightmare, a remix of Skies of Arcadia's final boss battle, made by D-Dubs featuring Juan Medrano. Until next month, have fun, kids!